Okay, hello everybody. Today I'm going to be making a launch vehicle that tries to use only the minimum new technology, but is still a useful starting RP0 vehicle. Um, the minimum new technology, by which I mean only stuff that we'll probably use later on too anyway. Uh, so I think it's probably going to be with a bucket of baby sergeants up top because that's pretty reasonable. You know what? Actually, I think did I leave one of these around somewhere? I think maybe in here. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So the upper stage of this is fine, um, but and it's using those avionics. This is using those avionics. But what we're going to want to do is then reuse the uh, the A4 engines, I think, as boosters. Um, so look at the reliability. Can't really tell the reliability from here, but it's poor. I can tell you that much. Why does this at this point? Well, that's a meter. All right. Well, that's fine. So let me just quick check what the actual reliability of the A4 is towards the end of its burn. It says, okay, so ignition reliability is 0.89, ends at 0.97. Cycle reliability starts at 0.75, ends at 0.95. So that's not that awful. The real problem is just that it takes a fair few of these things. So we want a slightly narrower cone here. Cylinder. 6. I think it's 644, which doesn't work in proc parts anymore. I have to fix that. So we'll just go with 6.5. That's fine. And we'll use the A4 fins. We don't need that. We do want to keep the retros. Don't want a RD103 anymore. Instead, we want an A4. So the rated burn time is 70 seconds. That is not 70 seconds. That is, in fact, quite far from 70 seconds. And we also need to replace what's in... Oh, pain. Have to move this down again. That, and this gets shrunk quite a bit. It's going to look like a fairly silly launch vehicle, but them's the breaks. Let's try 5 seconds past rated burn time. Let's put some fins on. At 45 degrees. And I'm going to turn off aerodynamic control on these because I want to just use the gimbal. Yes, sorry, Michelle Goder, I am answering comments. I've just been looking at this for a while and forgot to look over to the side. My apologies. So ask your whatever you want to ask, and I'll try to answer it. And I'll also try to remember to look. So, we'll also get rid of the HTP in this because we already have it up here. Yeah, so given that that's totally not going to be enough... Oh, that's interesting. That is actually enough for orbit already. I'm confused. Do those numbers make sense? Let's see. 26? Yeah, okay, so based on the fact that our baby sergeants just do a lot of good, that alone is enough to be a launch vehicle. So the other thing I'm going to do is going to add a fair amount of extra nitrogen, I think I want to do. And in answer to the question, I got this game from the KSP store. And you should too, because it's a great game. The Kerbal Space Program store. This is obviously heavily modded KSP, but it's KSP. So we want maybe more like 2,500, I think. Well, that's 3,000, but that's... I think 3,000 is fine. We've got excess delta V. It doesn't actually matter. Yeah, that's still way more delta V than we actually need, which is good because we'll take a bunch of gravity losses doing this. So let's see. We'll call this Alpha 3. And interestingly, that means that we don't have to quite redline this as much. So we can only go over by 2 minutes. Yeah, I got KSP the spring of 2013 from the KSP store because I wanted to get it direct from the store rather than Steam. I think that was about when they just started carrying it on Steam, but I wanted to get it direct from the store. So let's check our staging. Hot staged, retros. Oh yeah, we should move the retros down a little bit so that they're right at the top of the fins, because that would look prettier, wouldn't it? Alright. So yeah, this is basically... This is gonna be like if you stuck the upper stage of the Juno, the upper stages of Juno 1 and 2, on top of an Able upper stage, on top of a redesigned A4 V2 missile. This is interesting. I think I'm going to try with structural and see whether I still have enough delta V. Yeah, that doesn't lose much. Okay, then we can do this without the basic construction node. That's cool. That's always nice. Fewer nodes to unlock is good. So we'd need avionics and early orbital rocketry. And yeah, that's... let's make this blend in slightly better. Oh, I know what's wrong here. Doesn't actually have that. I have to fix that bug in proc parts, but that's fine. I can do it the other way instead. We'll just re-grab a cylinder. It's 1.65 and some number of meters long, which I've now forgotten. 1.65. Oops, wrong way. And where's the retros? There are the retros. 45 degrees. Staging is still broadly correct. Let's get back down to only one of these things. All right. Now, check staging, hot stage, the retros. Oh, hey, Tanifa. Tanifa, however it's pronounced. I can never remember. I think it's Tanifa. Tanifa? Yeah, that thing. And yeah, the staging looks correct to me. So you know what? This is indulgence, but why not? Make the lines line up. Such extreme indulgence. Okay, and the last bit is this thing, and we'll put it right there. Right. Check the staging one more time. All looks good to me. So, yeah. Find something decent for these. Maybe we'll go with KW for that. Let's give it a try. Actually might have to consider some fins for the upper stage. Might even boat tail it instead of doing it like that, because this thing is not going to get very high by the time staging occurs. I mean, technically, oh, that's interesting. Did I forget to? I forgot to fill the tank. I think I forgot to fill the tank. Yeah, I forgot to fill the tank. Huh. I guessed at the right length. That's cool. Oh, and I also forgot to switch to structural again. See, decadence just doesn't pay, does it? Right. Let's try this again. Unturned? I don't even know what that is. Sorry. Okay, let's try this whole rigmarole again. So this is going to have to be ludicrously aggressive because we almost have 2 G's of liftoff thrust-to-weight ratio. Right. Let's try this. I have neither Minecraft nor Days. So, light off the engine, and then almost immediately, because it spools up pretty fast, we'll stage. And let me just check that these, in fact, yeah, they don't have any control. Good. Yeah, and it quite immediately engages pitch and roll program. And for some reason, MechJeb has problems with this PID, even though I turned these off. Don't really understand why. Anyway, I think it's probably because of the weird setup we have with. Oh yeah, I forgot it's that bug too. The weird setup we have with that engine, with the basically it has 4 thrust transforms on it. This is going to be an interesting staging. Yeah, so we're going to stay nailed on the velocity vector. Getting a mite hot. Yeah, we probably shouldn't do that because of how much heating it would be suffering. Yeah, alright, that was kind of as expected. Alright, so we're going to have to suffer some steering losses. That's a great shame. Because that is not where you want to actually separate your stage. Well, we do have quite a bit of delta V, so it's probably fine. Yeah, let's try this. Kind of guessing. Oh, and yeah, it did jump. It did jump on coming to the pad. That's rather annoying. Oh well. Oh, and I still have my units in miles per hour. No, it jumped on going to the pad, which was rather annoying. Alright, so stage SEP is still going to be pretty bad, but let's... Nope. Alright, this approach is not going to work, is it? Need more fins. Now the real question is, I guess we just... where's supersonic fins? So annoying. Because if it did actually have enough stability, it would have been okay. Right. And we need to rotate these outward such that they match the slope of the fairing side. That's about right. And hey there. Welcome to the stream, Melancholy Flapper. Yeah, so let's check the stability of this. All right, so it's still unstable. Yeah, I probably should have done it narrower, but then the baby sergeant bucket wouldn't fit. So we're gonna have to do this a bit more, and this back. And what if we brought these down some? Alright. Wait, why is that so misaligned? That's going to annoy me if I don't fix it. You know what, I'm going to have to change these to Atlas side so I can see what I'm doing. Come on. There we are. Well, we can use Long March sides, that's fine. Still not parallel, is it? Still not parallel. One more little kick. That seems righter. Okay, so oh, and that of course hits the fins, but we're gonna have to oh, no, that is of course correct. Do it like this instead. Instead, we'll just put these on the 45-degree line. All right, now, I guess that means we need bigger fins down here too, which will also annoy me greatly, but dems to brakes. Yeah. All right. That is totally going to be statically stable. Probably can get away with a little less, too. All right. And we still have 9,700 meters per second. That's not bad. Can we get away with lower? Let's try 0.4. And this will raise our... Yeah, 98.61, that's fine. Okay. Oh, hey, Claw. Didn't expect to see you sell yourself for realism overhaul streams. Okay, so yeah, let's see if this works again. The staging got messed up again because of course it did. Hot stage that, put the clamps both in the same stage. The pumps on the clamps are both enabled. That's cool. Yeah, let's see exactly how this works or doesn't work. Okay. Transistor asks, kinetic space vehicle that goes nearly the speed of light. 2,000 years later. You could, but it would be in your head and not in KSP. We don't do relativity in KSP. We certainly don't do Planets of Apes in KSP. We also don't do Charlton Heston in KSP. Let's see how this works. Oh, that was an interesting kick. Man, this actually looks a lot like a missile. Like a Nike Ajax, maybe. Fin pattern's a bit different. Okay. 40 seconds. Wonder what our aerodynamic stresses are going to be at separation. Probably pretty high still. Yeah, because I didn't change the ascent path, so it'll still be... For the sake of argument, I'm going to actually open up far and see what the Q is at separation. High dynamic pressure, yeah, you ain't lying. Oh, we already passed max Q. 60 kilopascals. Alright, turn on RCS because that's all we have for roll control. 4 seconds, 3, 2, 1. Stage. And bingo. Align back with the velocity vector, and we're still only at 60 kilometers. We're not going to be dropping the fairings for a while. Only 1.5 meters per second of steering losses. That's pretty nice. Still got almost a minute of burn time. We did not loft high enough, I don't think. But we'll see. I'm gonna bet that we actually should have had a even less shallow a turn, because we only have that much left. We're only up to 133 kilometers. We're gonna have a perigee of like 150. And that's not really, if we're lucky, we'll have 150. Let's pitch up a little. I think I may have to fly this again and see. Oh yeah, now we're picking up. Now we're picking up apogee. Okay, sorry. I talk about it as perigee because that will be our final perigee. I mean, it's our initial apogee, but we'll burn there. And okay, now I'll just keep adjusting so we stay more or less on track. Oh, and I should have separated the fairings, but that's okay. Well, at burnout. But we'll still have plenty to get into orbit because we are doing 3.6 kilometers per second and we have 5 kilometers per second left. Now, a lot of that's going to decrease as our vertical speed decreases. 157 kilometers, not as high perigee as I wanted because I want this to stay in orbit for a while. Let's pitch down correctly. How much? Ooh, we don't have a lot of nitrogen left, do we? Well, that's okay. We don't need to have a lot of nitrogen left. We're actually probably going to hit a apogee of maybe 15,000 kilometers. I don't know. We'll see. Because that's a lot of delta V remaining. We're at 30. I think at about 15 seconds I want to start the spin up. Is that about right? No. Yeah, at 15 seconds start the spin up, and then at 10 seconds separate and ignite. Actually, no, because I don't want it to start processing anytime soon. There we go. No, we only made it to 4,000 kilometers. Okay, well. Yeah. Not a lot of steering losses, not a lot of gravity losses. Yeah, that's a decent launch vehicle. Hey Fab1723, this is the 20-inch X-ray probe core. It's basically it's one of the satellites that Vanguard was going to try to launch. I think they all failed, but it's functionally equivalent in terms of mass and capability and cost to the Explorer 1. But it's not in FASA, it's an XST. SXT. And that means I have it because I don't have FASA installed right now. But I definitely wanted something light to launch on this. Certainly not going to launch like 80 kilos on this. Although, might just barely get 80 kilos into orbit. I don't know. Doubtful. So yeah, that was fairly okay, but I want to refine my trajectory a little bit. So... So I think we'll do... Man, that really kicked us over at quite an angle. That's interesting. I think we'll do it this way. Yeah, okay, we're not going to do that. Yep. Yep, definitely trying another revert. Oh, why is pitch damper on? No wonder it was that might wow, it's getting worse each time. That's odd. Well, I can try to manually futz with it a little bit. Let's see. Hey, Agathorn. No, so this is... I don't play my career with revert. This is me testing a launch vehicle in Sandbox. Basically, this is me trying to optimize the crap out of something. If I were actually, like, playing a career, I haven't loaded my US career in a bit. If I were doing that, yeah. Every once in a while, I've been known to like rage quit KSP, and that effectively reverts, but I do play with reverts off. But yeah, sometimes, like for planes, I want to play with reverts on sometimes, just because of the way you sink into the runway sometimes. So let's adjust that and ignite. What was that about? That's interesting. Vapor and feed lines. I must have had enough drag that... Huh. Interesting. Might be worth putting some SEPs on there just to give an initial kick. So that doesn't happen. Oh, there we are. Nice. Well, we were almost perfectly aligned. Part of it is the clamps aren't in the least symmetrical, so, because I made them to look nice. Alright. this one more time. Yeah, I wonder why it didn't have an ullage issue the first time I launched it, but it did that time. I mean, because we know it's technically possible. Yeah, with pitch damper off, it's not squirreling about, and that explains why it was squirreling about before. Yeah, it's so. Yeah, you can ask Ferrum about why it does that. Basically, the only way he could find to fix that was to break the ground contact between the launch clamps and the ground, but that takes you out of pre-launch. Yeah, it's the usual float issue and ground contact error and stuff, which you don't see much in KSP because KSP is not at real sizes. 2, 1, ignite. Nope, it did it again. That's really weird, because it wasn't doing that on the prior launch. I wonder why the drag was such that it did that. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. Alright, so we're going to try a rather higher thing. You might think that, but floating origin I think doesn't actually... I think for the first setup it may not actually even apply. Yeah, I don't really remember why he said it did that. He may not even know why it does that, but we do know that it does, and that the way to fix it is to break launch clamps touching the ground. Alright, this should have lower Qs and hopefully get away with not having an ullage issue again. Whoa, that's interesting. Why are we doing that? Nope, it's still... That's so weird. Wonder why that is, because that first time we didn't do it. Huh. Because obviously we have a higher... Oh, no, I know why it's... Okay, I know why that is. Because I've been cutting it too fine on the hot staging, and it takes longer than the time I've been giving it to upgrade to full thrust. So I bet that's why it's doing that. So I have to eat another 50 to 100 meters per second of delta V loss. Whoa, that was a big jump. No, so the issue... Hold on, I have to... Yeah, so I think this will work, but let's find out. That was interesting. It just zapped the camera all the way around, I think. Oh, son of a... It happened again. This is not my night. I usually... usually not everything goes wrong. Agathon asked, did my tank lose pressure? No, my tank did not lose pressure. What happened was that I wanted to wait to turn on the AJ10 until literally the last possible instant, which meant that it didn't have enough time to get up to full thrust, which meant that the thrust it was providing versus gravity was too low, which meant that, not gravity, drag, which meant that the drag therefore was providing a negative acceleration, which then gave me vapor in the feed lines. So, let's try this one more time. So tempted to just go back to the VAB and fix the clamp issue, but that's... Well, I guess I'm flying this on manual this time. Because I have full down pitch, and it ain't going down much. No, so if the tank had not been fully pressurized, that would not have been the message I would have gotten. That was me not paying attention. I'm going to fix the clamps. And let's see if... Yeah, so enough with the fancy stuff. We're just going to go with this. Turn on the pumps. Trust that it kept the correct stage. It did. Dunbrider says, I haven't been streaming much. Yeah, no, the last week or two I just started. And also I'm hosting Squadcast now, so whether I like it or not, I'm streaming. But I actually do like it, so I'm streaming by myself too. And there's also Go for Launch, which you should watch, which is cool. Which involves me and other people, mostly other people. Although actually I did stream the last launch. Streaming. So yeah, I'm definitely streaming now. Alright. Let's try this again. We are actually lined up with the vertical, which is really nice for once. Yeah. Alright, so this time I want to actually stage the AJ10 in about 1.5 seconds remaining, rather than a 1/4 second remaining, which is what I've been trying to nail before. Yeah, so Vanamon mentions that it looks like a Spartan that should go on a diet. Now, interestingly, I had mentioned earlier on that it looked kind of like a Nike Ajax, but the fins are off. And since Spartan basically was a late Nike, that makes sense. But yeah, it's I mean, basically it's a V2 booster with then a AJ10 upper, like what was on Vanguard and then Thor-Able. Yep, that worked fine. Okay, that is what I thought was going wrong. Always nice when your failure investigation is correct. Upper stage engines do spool up much faster, and this is a pressure-fed engine, and therefore spools up really, really fast, but it's still not fast enough to be at full thrust with that much drag and counteract, because it's probably just barely counteracting a lot of the drag then anyway, so we're going to actually want to pitch up even more, I think. Yeah. That's about right. Oh, I misread. Apparently, Venomon said Sparrow, not Spartan. It would be a remarkably fat Sparrow. Alright, coming up on the Kármán line, we'll ditch our fairings. Alright, we're going to have a fairly long coast to Apogee, but I don't care because we've got Delta V to burn. Why does this keep... Oh, because it's in the save file and it reverts, so... Yeah, okay. Alright. Burnout and... Yeah, Tanavar says the lack of curvature. Yeah, it does wonders for your feeling of actually being in space when the horizon doesn't kind of look like a small circle. It really does change things. So we want to set about, what is this going to be? Maybe 96 degrees, 0 pitch. And let's stabilize and roll as well. Alright, so we've got a little while to wait before Apogee. Alright, so I guess what do we want to do? I guess 15 seconds we spin up, and then, yeah, stage in fairly rapid succession in the Juno style, which is let it burn, then 2 seconds between, and then... whoops. Alright, that's fine. Okay, so 3,000 kilometers by 260 kilometers. That's not a bad orbit. Yeah, so we definitely need to fly, to get to a reasonable final perigee, we need a not so efficient launched orbit, and then like a 3-minute coast to apogee for firing. But that's fine. Alright, so this launch vehicle has proved itself. We do have to remember that we have to hot stage before we quite burn out the lower stage, because otherwise we're in trouble. And yeah, that worked pretty well. Okay, now the reason why I made this launch vehicle is because I posted on the Go for Launch thread. What I wanted to do was look at what don't we have to unlock. So there's stuff that we can unlock that we'll want to use later. For example, baby sergeants are just good things to have around, because they let us go to the moon, for example, with tech like this. AJ-10, we're probably going to use that for a while, so might as well unlock it. And instead of unlocking either the XLR-50 from Vanguard or the RD-103, which are engines that we basically will not use again after our first few orbital missions. I decided to try this with the V2 first stage. And yeah, it worked. It doesn't mass all that much more than Vanguard. I mean, Vanguard was about 10 tons. This is 15 tons. And right, this early avionics unit, which gonna move it down again, because it's supposed to be a ring around. Oh, and I left this on the wrong texture too. It's really supposed to be, you know, a ring around the intertank down here. Hey, don't you be hating on Vanguard. I love me some Vanguard. Vanguard's failure rate was not noticeably worse than other early launch vehicles' failure rate. Because you got to remember that, for example, Juno 1, they'd already launched it a bunch of times as Jupiter C, and yet, despite Explorer 1 working, like the next one or two failed from that. So Vanguard's record, not that bad when you consider. It's just, it sticks in the public memory, I would say, mostly because its first failure was just so public and came right after the original Sputnik launch. And so people, you know, remember that. Yeah, and it was a pretty shameful failure. I mean, you blow up a foot above the pad, your satellite bounces to a stop in the hedge and starts beeping plaintively. I mean, that's kind of hard to live down. And yet, you know, the upper stages were used for the next 50 years on Delta. So don't be hating on Vanguard. Okay, so this is a reasonable launch vehicle. So let's look at what we can do with essentially that upper stage set, because it's dirt cheap. And we don't even need spin rockets per se, but I guess they're cheap enough. But let's... Yeah, because then we can do this without avionics. So let's make a V2-ish sounding rocket. Plonk. Guys, why won't it let me select this? There we go. Don't need no stinking avionics. Tank domes are cool, and we should leave them. And you know what, let's do wasted. 1 meter, and this is 1.65. What was it, 112? Yeah, the other one was 112. Okay. Yeah, this little puppy is going to get pretty high, I think one could reasonably say. Right, so we want that, then we want this in the next stage. And yeah, fairing sides, spin up, then separation, retros. Yeah, okay, that's all good. Yeah, let's see how high we can get with this. You know what? Well, no. Once again, it's always more tempting just to revert than to fix that issue with ScanSat. It's off like a shot. Starting thrust-weight ratio of 2.3. Note that we have no control, which is as expected. Yeah, you went through that coffee pretty fast. Yeah, what? It's like, just after noon for you? Well, I mean, I guess you have all of it to drink that's in your mug. Okay, and we're high enough that we should probably be safe to spin up. So that's... Amsterdam asks, why did I make things spin? That's spin stabilization. You'll notice that down here, we're staying right nailed on prograde, despite the fact that when we originally ignited, we were in the atmosphere. That's because we're spin stabilized. That means that we're using gyroscopic forces to stay aligned, and that means if there are irregularities in thrust, then they'll basically be counteracted because we're spinning, so it'll be an irregularity thrust one way and then the other way, which cancels it out, and then etc. This is basically how most all early satellites were placed in orbit. They were spin stabilized at the end so that they would stay aligned with things. But it's also how a lot of early final stages, which were usually solid kick motors, would work. They'd be spin stabilized and didn't have any guidance at all. In fact, that entire launch did not have any pitch on roll control or throttle control. That was just hitting spacebar a lot. So yeah, in terms of why I didn't eject the booster before spinning up, I didn't particularly want to risk there being immediate precession from the spin up. With the booster still attached, the rotational inertias were such that I was likely to have a good successful spin up. Also because I had no, like, if I were going to do something like that, usually I would have it on an upper stage with avionics with some RCS that would keep it aligned in pitch and yaw while the roll spun up. Given that I couldn't do that with this because I had no avionics control at all, that was why I left it attached to the booster. So yeah, so this is getting up to almost 6 kilometers. Sorry, almost 6,000 kilometers, which is pretty good for this early little thing. So yeah, it requires early avionics for that probe core. It requires early orbital rocketry for the baby Sargents, but it only costs 580 funds, which would be pretty good for sounding rocket contracts. So yeah, so that worked pretty well. And yeah, what else? So yeah, last time I had this tier 1.5 launch vehicle. So let's do something with a fairly long. Let's load it up, but let's replace this upper stage with. I guess we could do it with a Centaur or something. So Tet suggests ejecting the booster when the spin starts. Since the spin is entirely orthogonal to the velocity vector, I actually wouldn't gain any speed. I mean, I would gain more rotational speed, but again, that raises my concern of would it start to precess while it was spinning up. And also the other thing is the booster has those giant fins on it, so during spin up it is at least aerodynamically stabilized in terms of keeping nailed to surface prograde. But yeah, I mean, it's worth trying, and I'll try that. No, the spin rockets are perfectly horizontal, so it wouldn't actually be contributing any prograde or retrograde velocity. In fact, you could, yeah, if they were aimed slightly down and therefore the velocity increment would be going upwards, as they usually are for like when they're used for both spin and ullage, then it would make sense to not have the booster attached. But yeah, no, this was. If they were aimed down though, they'd hit the interstage or the payload fairing base, and that would kind of be a problem. So yeah, what is this? This is 3. Yeah, that's 3 LR79s. So I guess we can make a baby. Yeah, let's replace this with essentially a Centaur, I guess. 3.05. Okay, and we want I guess we'll leave it at default. It'll be a regular Centaur, not a balloon, not a real balloon Centaur. RL10 is down here somewhere. RD RL. Okay, so change the alignment of that, get rid of the struts. Well, we can leave the strut over here for now. Oh man, we're gonna have to deal with RCS too, aren't I? That's kind of annoying, but okay. And where did the strut go? There's the strut. 90. Oh, that's interesting. It's aligning over there because 90 for this is now a different 90 alignment. What are we behind anyway? Oh, we're behind. Line this up. That'll do. Denver out here asks about fin created spin stabilization, and yes, that's actually what most of the sounding rockets have, and that's what I could well have done on that sounding rocket actually, and not even bothered with the spin motors. I think I had the spin motors on there because I started from the actual launch vehicle where it needs them. But yeah, you definitely. That's how most of these things are spin stabilized, is with fins. All right, so what was I guess I was adding some RCS. Let's go with there's the 270. Yeah, okay. There's this. We want 4 of these things. And plop this in. Line it up. That's fine. Now we want empty this and empty this. You know what, the heck with it. I might as well actually make this a real Centaur. zones, so everything's 100%, kind of by definition. Balloon. Oh, this isn't even 3 meters yet. Whoops. Alright, that's better. Let's move these things in. That's about right. I have to deal with the strut, though. Where is the strut? Alright. Move the RCS out. Get the strut back. And what do we want? We want about there, I think. Wait, why is it in 4x? We don't want it in 4x. Yeah. That's fine. Move these back. Yeah, the dings are because I forgot to turn off dings in my RC client. And because I'm a popular guy and people keep pinging me. Like that. Yeah. Getting trolled by the people who are supposed to stop trolls. How it works. RC, no, IRC client, not RC client. All right, so it's that, and we actually want the LH motors to fire first. Oh yeah, I need a tank for the RCS. And by a tank, I mean 2 tanks, because 2 tanks are better than 1. And they're symmetrical. We want fillet cylinder. And let's do some hydrazine RCS, I guess. And level 2. Wait, why is it? Oh, because I didn't change it over to this. And it's not picking up the RCS. So let's look for hydrazine. 28 liters, that's fine. That'll work. Yes, I'm basically making a Centaur. I haven't looked up the numbers, but it's about, what, 8.5 minutes burn time? And so let's see what we get. Not long enough. Which, oh yeah, which are these things? Oh, they're the firstest. We'll do 3 ones because the original ones are really bad. 7 minutes and 9 seconds. Oh, actually, I should probably check what the rated burn time of these things even are. Come on. A31. That's a lot of configs. A5, C, C1, A4, 3.1. 710 seconds. All right. That is a Agathorn. I don't have test flight enabled in Sandbox. I think we went over this last time, so that's why middle click isn't actually doing it here. And Tanava, yep, that's good old original proc fairings. And by original, I mean not ours. eDogs. All right, so now we can bring this right up and in. Okay, and last but not least, let's reconnect this. Oh, son of a... I forgot I was on double symmetry. All right. And this is going to need no extra height. And instead... sorry about that, my mic dropped for a sec. So this is 600 millimeters, which means this should be 600 millimeters. And then this should be 3.05. And does that give us enough clearance? It does. Okay. So yeah, you guys should be able to hear me again, I think. Let me know if you can hear me again. And now let's look over at our delta V. Quite a lot. So let's be somewhat more reasonable with this and presume that we're going to the moon. That's probably about right. So, yeah, 12.658, that's probably fine. When do the fairings decouple? The fairings decouple after Centaur ignition. What I am going to do, I think, is add a bit extra hydrogen. Alright, which will decrease our delta V slightly, but due to boil off, it'll actually probably come out the same. Yeah, not sure why people are still having issues with the sound, but I think it's working now. Yeah, so let's try this out. And I'll show you how to launch with a crazy long. Actually, you know what? To really demonstrate this, let's not have translunar delta V. Let's actually have that probably is enough, but let's find out. All right. Oh, right. And if I'm doing that, I might as well upgrade these to what tech node are these? Can't remember, but let's do that. Kerlux, and that means we can stretch our core quite a bit. All right. The height of the fairing. No, the fairing? Fairing looks fine. Yeah, that all looks fine. Alright, so let's give this a try. Let's check our staging. All that fires fine. Fairing sep and retros. Yeah, Tets, I did read the chat. I looked at the fairings. You can see, I mean, look, it's not really higher than it should be. Oh, you mean this one? No, that one's the right height. I'm now confused which fairing you were saying is messed up. These things down at the bottom are separation motors. So they're gonna pull this core stage back at the same time that the ullage motors fire up here. They're inside the fairing at the moment, to push the Centaur forward and to ullage the to ullage the Centaur so that the engines can ignite successfully. Well, just in case, we can pull it down a little bit like that, and that will save us. That's interesting. Why is our Delta V? Oh, because I upgraded the engines, that's why. And I figured about 9,500, I believe, was a decent estimate of how much it'll take to get into orbit. So let's see if this actually works after all that. And now we need a radically different ascent profile than the last thing we launched. Because the last thing we launched was ridiculously overthrusted, and this is anything but overthrusted. Okay, so yeah, let's turn start at 90, turn end, what am I going to estimate? Hard one. Oh, but we actually have a high thrust to weight ratio on the first stage, so I think we're probably going to want 130 for now. 45, and core ignition, lift off. So XShadow asks, why have separation motors on a lower stage if you're then just going to ignite your upper stage anyway? Also, I got to turn this sound down. It's really kind of loud. It's already pretty low, but we can turn it down even further. Yeah, Agathon's right that the issue is safety. The last thing you want to have happen as you ignite a sense of upper stage, and remember that it's not shrouded at all, that engine. You're leaving the shroud. So the last thing you want is some backblast, which will then, you know, melt the tubing and the turbo pump and all that stuff. So best to make sure that there's nothing behind you. Also, if you burn, you know, start burning while the upper stage is still there, you'll heat it up, it might explode, stuff might whack you. So Claw asked something about the funding. Yes, in RP0, one fund in KSP is $1,000 in 1965 dollars. Everything else is inflation adjusted. So yeah, that's another thing that we try to make real. Yes, my entire modding career is obviously sucking the fun out of everything XShadowX. Look at how gloriously unfun this is. It's basically spreadsheets. So the way they actually are hot staging, the Soviets hot staging, is they start the verniers and they burn during separation. And once you've actually separated, then they ignite the core chamber. Only in really isolated instances are you igniting the full chamber while you're hot staging. That's kind of dangerous. That said, that rocket we had before with the AJ-10, that is realistic. They did hot stage Vanguard enable. And they had a heat shield at the end of the forward intertank. The forward tank's dome had a heat shield such that the AJ-10 wouldn't blow through the tank on the lower stage at Vanguard. Separation. Ullage motor ignition. There we go. And wow, we have a much higher apogee than I would have liked. We're going to have a lot of steering losses, but that's okay. All right, so that high thrust-to-weight ratio at burnout on the first stage meant that our apogee got put way high. I wanted only about 180 kilometers in burnout. Now watch these things mount. They're going to mount as we burn level, and this comes down. Oh, that's part of why I forgot I had that issue in MechJeb. And then it's going to also be high because once this gets down closer to level, then we're going to have to pitch up because we're totally not going to circularize before apogee. Apogee is going to be in about 2 minutes and 45 seconds. We're going to pick up enough speed that that'll advance. We have 7.5 minutes to burn. It's going to be a while. I mean, we could just go for a higher orbit, but oh well. And yeah, the Muratu is right. The reason for that mesh is so that the hot gases would escape and not just blow out the tank. That is also incidentally why, if you look at Titan II, Titan II was one of the few U.S. launch vehicles that actually hot staged like that. There are similar gaps. And Amsterdam, you will, I think, remember, maybe, when we looked at the Titan II in the rocket park at Kennedy Space Center, you could actually see little gaps in the shroud between the first and the second stage. Hey, Bevo. Good to see you here. And great to see that new series starting, Bevo. Huh, I wonder why there's that gap between the fairing base and the payload. As proc fairing interaction, it's annoying. Alright, so now we're probably going to want to pitch up a little bit. Do we? No. No, I want a lower orbit. So we'll let it ride and not pitch up until after apogee. Tets points out that may be why the fairing went up. Yes, that would in fact totally explain it, and I wasn't noticing it because I was comparing the top of the payload with the top of the fairing, and that looked normal to me. So yeah, it turns out you were exactly right, and I just totally missed it. Okay, we're passing apogee. We'll pitch up. Man, it's got a little bit of wobble. Auto tuning. Oh, that's right. Yeah, let's do that. Note that Melancholy Flapper, you were asked, if you're still on the stream, you were asking before about launching to lower inclinations. Note how our velocity vector has finally gone to the south of us, which means we actually have some anti-normal velocity. So we're now burning technically a little bit normal. So notice how this is going down some as we're killing anti-normal velocity. So that's... we're technically not doing a dogleg, but we're still effectively doing a dogleg because we're not perfectly aligned with the heading, the azimuth of the velocity vector. We've now picked up almost 300 meters per second down velocity. I'm going to pitch up some more. Mounting steering losses, but, you know, we'll just eat it. I do think I probably over budgeted a bit, so we'll be okay. Probably could have done it on like 9450 instead of 9500. Yeah, I don't need the far window up anymore, but XShadow asked, do I have test flight installed? Yes, I do, but I have it turned off for Sandbox because I don't want to revert at this point just to, because test flight screwed up. For career, I obviously only play with test flight on. We're going to need to pitch up quite a bit more. Still got almost 3 minutes of burn left. Hello, Waiton 420. Hopefully I'm not totally butchering that name. Still more down velocity. We're going to have to pitch up quite aggressively now. All right, this is finally starting to decrease. Also, how's the text quality, guys? Can you actually read the text in the MJ windows? I mean, if you run full screen, obviously. This is transmitting at 2560 by 1600, but I did turn the bit rate down, so it may be a bit blurry. I don't know. Alright, now we're finally beginning to clear off some of that vertical speed. We've now sunk past 185 kilometers, so I actually didn't loft enough. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Or I didn't kill my sink rate fast enough. Man, it's been a while since I lost a really, really, really long-burning upper stage. Note that this was totally not optimized for low Earth orbit. This is what you do if you want to go direct to the moon with 2 stages. And relight the Centaur in flight, you know, after circularizing, and then do a T-Liber. Yeah, we'll be lucky to get a 160 kilometer perigee. Mounting steering losses, we're already at 200 meters per second of steering losses. This is not the bestest launch ever, but that's kind of, you get what you pay for with a Centaur. Okay. And we have a basically circular orbit. We have 244 meters per second remaining. And that worked fairly well. Almost 300 meters per second of steering losses. So if I didn't have such horrific steering losses, which there are ways I could have done that. Like if I went to a slightly lower initial apogee, then could have pitched up more earlier and not incurred all the early steering losses. Then also, yeah, but it probably would take something like 200 meters per second in steering losses, maybe 150, just because of how high we'd have to pitch for that low in orbit. But yeah, that's the demonstration of a really, really long burning upper and how you get into low Earth orbit. You loft it high, you pitch up a lot, you accept a lot of steering losses, but yeah, it still worked. And we've put, how much have we put in orbit? 5.6 tons. I'm fairly sure that my bitrate is 2500, but let me just double check. Oh, my bitrate for some reason was set to 5000. That would explain why everything's buffering. Sorry, guys. It is now at 2500. I'm not sure whether that'll take effect right now or only the next time I'm streaming. Okay, I guess that's sort of immaterial because I'm beginning to get quite sleepy, so I think I'll call a halt there unless anybody has any last remaining questions. I'll watch the chat for another couple minutes. Yeah, so meanwhile, we can just fix this. And we did have 244 meters per second remaining. So let's try that. And all right, so let's do an even 6 tons. That'll do. That'll do. All right, so yeah, so AMS is already asking the question of what Go for Launch is. Basically, it's a cooperative RP0 playthrough. We decide what missions we're going to fly cooperatively. We design various launch vehicles. Then we stream the actual launches where, like, somebody's the flight director, somebody does guidance for the booster and trajectory, somebody does range safety. So if something goes weird, then range safety blows it up. It's a lot of fun. Tetra's in chat flew the aircraft that we flew last weekend, and may or may not fly again on Sunday. I think figure that one out. And yeah, we just earlier today launched a whole bunch of sounding rockets. So that was a lot of fun. Tetra suggests launch upside down. I'm not even sure what you mean by that. Oh, I'm sure our airplanes will get to space, Agathorn. I think that will be okay. All right. But anyway, barring anybody else having anything, I think I'm gonna call it quits on the stream. Oh, awesome. Tetra says he will be there. Okay, so yeah, everybody tune in Sunday at, we say, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 10 p.m. UTC. And you'll get to see both some more sounding rockets launching and Tetra's flying a neat jet plane and getting a nice contract for steady flight at a given altitude, and maybe even trying for 25 kilometers, although it seems like it would be hard. We'll see. So wait on 420 asked, do I have a list of my visual mods? I just have RV. That is my visual mod. And Pingo Pete accepted my pull request, which updates it for the latest Eve and stuff. So you want to just grab that, and it should be fairly easy to install. You may want to use the regular scatter configs rather than RV's configs, but the Eve config should all be ready, good to go. Okay, so yep, I will be calling it quits. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed stuff, and I'll see you next time at some point when I stream again, which will probably not be all that long from now. First of all, the Go for Launch thing on Sunday. And yeah, looking forward to it. Catch you all later. Cheers.